Jamie and Dakota. A new life in Ireland, love away from the spotlight. The rain in County Down had always fallen softly, as if the sky knew how to be gentle. For years, Jamie Dornan had dreamed of this place, not the fame, not the flashing lights of Los Angeles, but the quiet rhythm of home. The sound of the sea against the rocks, the scent of damp grass after dawn. And now, Dakota Johnson was here too. It wasn't a grand arrival. There were no cameras, no red carpets. Just a gray morning, a single suitcase, and a woman stepping out of a small car, her eyes searching for someone who had once been both her co-star and her heartbreak. When Jamie opened the old wooden door, he didn't say a word. He just smiled, that soft, unmistakably Irish smile, and Dakota exhaled as if she had been holding her breath for years. The return to silence. Their life in Ireland began quietly. They rented a secluded cottage near the Mourne Mountains, where time seemed to stretch and fold into itself. There were no assistants, no makeup artists, no paparazzi hiding behind trees, only the wind, the rain, and the sound of birds waking up each morning. Dakota often woke up before Jamie, slipping into his old wool sweater and making coffee while the fog rolled in from the hills. Sometimes she would stand by the window, watching him outside, chopping wood, humming old Irish tunes she didn't understand but found beautiful. They didn't talk much at first. Words felt too heavy, too fragile. What they shared was presence, the kind of silence that isn't empty, but full. Full of all the things they never got to say. One night, sitting by the fireplace, Dakota whispered, "It feels like we never really ended. We just stopped pretending." Jamie looked at her, eyes soft and tired. And now we don't have to pretend anymore." That was the beginning, not of fame, but of healing. A place without noise. The locals were respectful. People in that small Irish town didn't gossip much. They treated Jamie like Jamie, not the star of 50 Shades. And Dakota, though some recognized her, was seen simply as his friend from America who loves the rain. They walked to the village market every Sunday. He carried the bags, she picked flowers. Sometimes children waved at them. Sometimes they'd stop by the bakery, sharing a scone and laughing about how much butter Jamie liked on everything. "Hollywood never felt real," Dakota said one morning, watching the sea crash against the cliffs. "But this does. It's terrifying how real it feels." Jamie smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's because here, nobody's watching. You can be whoever you want." She looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't an actress, and he wasn't a movie star. They were just two souls rediscovering what it means to breathe. The ghosts of the past. But peace has its own kind of ghosts. Sometimes, at night, Dakota would wake from dreams of flashing lights, photographers yelling her name, reporters asking questions about Chris, Amelia, the old headlines that refused to die. Jamie would find her sitting by the window, lost in thought. "You can't run forever," she whispered once. "I'm not running," he said. "I'm staying, with you." He reached for her hand, and that was all she needed. Still, there were moments when they both felt the weight of what the world once made of them. The rumors, the speculation, the Christian and Anna myth that had swallowed their real selves. Now, they were learning to separate them from the characters that defined them for a decade. Jamie wrote in his journal each morning. Dakota painted. Some days, they didn't speak until evening, and that was okay. Silence had become their shared language. A visit from the past. One afternoon, a letter arrived, an invitation to a private screening in London. Their old director, James Foley, wanted to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of 50 Shades of Grey. Jamie read it aloud at the kitchen table. Dakota smiled faintly. 10 years, can you believe it? He looked at her. Feels like another lifetime. She hesitated. Will you go? Jamie folded the letter carefully. Not this time. I've already had enough of pretending. She reached across the table, touching his wrist. Then we'll stay here. Just us. And they did. They spent that evening making dinner together, pasta, wine, laughter. Outside, the rain fell harder, but inside, it felt like summer. The Village Festival. By late spring, the town held its annual May Festival, a small, cheerful event with music, dancing, and homemade pies. Jamie convinced Dakota to go, saying it would be a bit of crack Irish for fun. At first, she was nervous. People looked, whispered, smiled politely. But soon, someone handed her a pint of cider and pulled her into a circle dance. Jamie laughed so hard he almost spilled his drink. When the band played an old Irish love song, Jamie took her hand and led her under the fairy lights strung between the trees. "We've danced in movies before," he said. "Yes," she replied, smiling. "But never like this." They moved slowly, her head against his chest, his hand on her back. Around them, the village clapped and sang. But for Jamie and Dakota, the world had gone silent again, only the rhythm of two hearts trying to remember what it felt like to be together. A woman nearby whispered to her husband, "You can always tell when love's real. You just know." Letters and Truths. By midsummer, Dakota started writing again, not scripts, not interviews, but letters. Some were to herself. Some, she never sent. One morning, she left a note on Jamie's desk. It read, "You once said we were too different. Maybe we are. But difference doesn't mean distance. You're the only constant in every version of me." He read it twice, then went outside, finding her near the sea. Without a word, he kissed her, the kind of kiss that speaks of years lost and found again. After that, they began planning a small garden behind the cottage. Tomatoes, herbs, and a single cherry tree, Dakota's idea. "It's a promise," she said. "Cherry trees take years to bloom, but when they do, it's worth the wait." Jamie smiled. "Just like us. The world finds out. Peace never lasts forever, especially when you've once belonged to the world." One September afternoon, a tourist snapped a photo, Jamie and Dakota walking hand in hand along the harbor. Within hours, the image spread online. Headlines screamed, "Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson living together in Ireland. Is this Hollywood's quietest comeback? From on-screen lovers to real-life romance, finally confirmed." The reaction was immediate. Fans rejoiced. Tabloids speculated. Publicists panicked. Jamie's phone rang non-stop. Dakota's team begged her to make a statement. But they refused. Instead, she posted one line on Instagram, against a photo of the Irish coastline. "Happiness doesn't need permission." It became one of the most shared posts of the year. The Firelight Promise. Autumn in Ireland came early that year. The evenings grew longer, colder. Inside their cottage, Jamie and Dakota lit the fireplace every night, reading poetry or simply listening to the rain. One evening, as the fire flickered, Jamie looked at her and said softly, "You know, I never stopped believing we'd find our way back." She laughed quietly. "You, the most cynical man in Hollywood?" He shrugged. "Even cynics fall in love, they just hide it better." Dakota leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me one thing. Anything. If it ever gets loud again, if the world starts shouting, you'll bring me back here." He nodded, his fingers tracing the back of her hand. "Always back here, always." The first snow. The first snow arrived early in December. Jamie woke before dawn, stepping outside to find the cottage roof covered in white. Dakota joined him, barefoot, her breath visible in the cold air. "Beautiful," she said softly. He looked at her, smiling. "It is now." They spent that day decorating for Christmas, using bits of ribbon and candles from the market. No assistants, no stylists, just the two of them, cooking stew and playing old records. That night, as they stood under the doorway, snow falling beyond the window, Jamie whispered, We've been through storms, love. But maybe this is what calm looks like. Dakota leaned against him. I don't want calm if it means losing you. He kissed her forehead. You won't. A quiet forever. Months passed. The headlines faded, the gossip cooled, and Hollywood moved on, as it always does. But in a small corner of Ireland, two people continued their quiet rebellion against the noise. They weren't hiding, they were simply living. Some days were mundane, groceries, repairs, long walks. Other days were extraordinary, like the night Jamie surprised Dakota with a candlelit dinner by the cliffs, or the morning she told him she'd written a book inspired by their journey. It wasn't about fame, it wasn't about forgiveness, it was about peace, something both of them had spent years searching for in all the wrong places. In the final page of Dakota's journal, she wrote, "The world fell in love with a story once, a story that wasn't real. But this is ours. No cameras, no scripts, just two hearts that finally stopped running." And on a quiet evening, as the sun sank behind the Irish hills, Jamie read those words aloud, smiling, because for the first time in forever, they didn't need the world to believe in them. They finally believed in each other. The cottage still stands today, surrounded by wildflowers and the whisper of the sea. Locals sometimes say they see two figures walking at dusk, laughing softly, hand in hand, as the wind carries a familiar tune. Maybe it's them. Maybe it's just the memory of a love that refused to fade. But one thing is certain. Hollywood may have created the myth of Christian and Anna, but Ireland kept alive the truth of Jamie and Dakota. And for once, love didn't need an audience. It just needed a home.